Ah, man. Ah, man. A little bit of a different kind of stream today, guys. A little bit of a different thing going on. You know, I was trying to think of what to do, what to stream about. And honestly, I can't really think of anything else to do or to get into than to talk about Toriyama and his passing and his legacy. You know, this is a person that made an incredible impact on me, on many people, and just look, a really tough one for I think many nerds. And the bottom line is like I can't even really function and think of what else to do, what else to cover, what else to talk about. Definitely a shocking passing. And so I felt like, you know, what we could do is we could take the stream and remember the legacy of Toriyama. I can kind of explain to some of you maybe uninitiated why he was such an important figure. Feels so crazy to say was. Like, it's just crazy, right? We're going to watch some videos. Going to explain some things. Going to talk about Toriyama. There's some other stuff that we could maybe talk about. If you guys have questions, comments, or if there's other things that you want to get into, we can do that. But that's really all I could think to do today was talk about Toriyama. We're going to watch a couple of videos. They're both pretty long. They're both like a half hour. And so we'll watch these videos about Dragon Ball and about Akira Toriyama. And I'll just kind of explain why this man's work meant so much to me and to other people. You know what I mean? So that's what we're going to do today. A little bit of a different stream, but there's just nothing else I could even think to do. There's nothing else I could even really think to do. So forgive me. Didn't want to cancel the stream, but that's all I could really think to do and think to talk about. There is, you know, look, I know Zack Snyder was on Rogan, and I love that. And there's specifically one thing that I think we could get into and talk about with regards to like Batman and some of his thoughts on the mythos. So maybe we can do that and get a little bit distracted. But I'm already completely, totally distracted, shocked, and confused. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's kind of what we're going to do today. As far as show notes are concerned, today is the last day for you to be able to get Unity, the first 45 pages, the digital preview for $1. So go check out the link to the Kickstarter. If somebody could link that into chat, I'll try to get that pulled up as well. Go check that out. Go check that out. And in fact, I think you have less than an hour to do that. Because it ends at noon, I believe, is when I made that stop. So if you have not gone to check that shit out yet and you want to check out Chapter 1, a lot of people really hyped up about it. I'm really proud of it. Here, I'll put it into the chat right here. And I will put on the gambling for you guys as well. Give me just a second here. Thanks, Griff. Appreciate you, bro. Let me wait for a second there and get that going on. Yeah, we can talk about the Fallout trailer. Look, I'm really excited about the Fallout trailer. It looks great. It looks really, really good, and it makes me even more angry about like the Halo show and just some of the crap we've gotten over the past couple of years. But Fallout trailer looks really good. So, hell yeah. It would be hype if we get Danny on stream. If Danny's watching, if he sees the stream, he chimes in and he wants to come on, I'll definitely get on there and have a conversation with him. To be honest with you, like, I'm kind of trying to keep it together, be an adult, and not shed a bunch of man tears. I have shed some. I shed some last night. I shed some this morning, and I'm trying to kind of keep it together and not get too emotional, man. I really loved this dude and what he did and his work. you know? So it's a really tough one. Maybe we could start, and I'm going to put on but this awesome, here, look, I'll show you this. This is what I'm rocking today. I'm putting on this Goku blanket. Elisa got me this for my birthday. First birthday I had with Liam. I have these awesome pictures of like me holding Liam in my blanket and some of my Dragon Ball figures. Maybe some of you guys saw, but for Halloween last year, I dressed up as Vegeta, and Liam was Trunks, and Elisa was Bulma. We took a family photo. It was pretty cool. Meant a lot, man. I think, you know, what maybe would be cool is if we could all share sort of our first memories of Dragon Ball, or like how Dragon Ball affected us. I'll tell you, for me, one of the really like cool parts of Dragon Ball was it was this thing my cousin and I really bonded over when we were younger. And I only had like 3 channels at my house. I didn't have like Nickelodeon. I didn't have Cartoon Network. I didn't have like any of that shit. So it was like a special treat when I went to my cousin's house and I was able to watch Dragon Ball. And we'd stay up and watch Dragon Ball and watch all the Toonami marathons of Dragon Ball. We got Dragon Ball. We got these like Dragon Ball card games. We would play. We had no idea how we were playing, but we just loved it. And that love, that shared love of Dragon Ball lasted like our whole lives. You know, even to this day when we get together, you know, we'll talk about Dragon Ball, talk about the latest Dragon Ball game, or, you know, even with just Super and all of these things, it was huge. So it was a really big part of my life, and then I think most of us can probably relate to, like, just as you went through life, and for me, like in high school and even into college, seeing somebody with a Dragon Ball shirt or Dragon Ball merch was cool. You know, it was like a signaler that you guys were a part of the same club. You know what I mean? You were in the same group. The concept of going Super Saiyan, I mean, just like the Force, you know, where like every kid, every person that grew up that watched Star Wars at one point tried to use the Force. All of us tried to go Super Saiyan and tried to ascend or do a Kamehameha. All of us. And so, yeah, there's a lot of fond memories of that, a lot of crazy stuff. And then, like, you know, Dragon Ball was just so huge, and it meant so much to so many people. And I think one of the things that's kind of cool, like, it totally sucks that, you know, Toriyama has passed, but one of the things that's a small little kind of silver lining here, and I'm going to put the gambling on for you guys right now, so there you go. One of the small silver linings that to come out of this whole situation is that I think a lot of people that were unfamiliar or maybe just didn't, you know, pay super close attention are now seeing how much of an impact that shit made. I mean, you've got the president of France sharing an original piece of artwork that he had. You've got all kinds of athletes sharing how much it meant to them. Big time YouTubers, a bunch of people in the comic scene. This might sound crazy, but the Mexican cartels have called a ceasefire, a truce on their conflicts right now to honor the passing of Toriyama. This is another thing that's kind of interesting about Toriyama and Dragon Ball specifically, was that the Latino community, the black community, found something in Dragon Ball that was not in a lot of other media, and it meant something really important to those particular communities. Like, here, I'll show you something. This is kind of crazy, because you'd say, like, oh, the cartel's calling a truce, like, that's crazy, that's bullshit, it's probably clickbait. It's not. And I want to show you, I'll show you something here. Let me get it pulled up. Like, this is just, we're gonna learn some shit today. You know what I mean? So yeah, you have cartels calling a ceasefire and a truce, and this is one of the things that's kind of interesting in Mexico when Jiren was gonna fight Goku, and this is in Dragon Ball Super. This isn't even like Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball Z. They literally had stadiums and movie theaters and all of these big things where they advertised this like it was a real fight. And check this out. This is an actual letter from the foreign minister of Japan to people in Mexico to try to get them to stop the screenings that I was just talking about. Like, that's how big Dragon Ball was. And there was something about it that I almost can't explain it. Like, I can't quite put it into words, but it was able to truly transcend. We talk about transcendent media. Show the clips of people watching the fight. The crowds were insane. Oh my God. Dude, if I wish, like, if we invent time travel someday, or like you have the ability to like go back and experience some of these things, I would love to go to a fucking stadium in Mexico and watch that fight with a bunch of people. You know what I mean? So you talk about transcendent media. Star Wars is obviously one of those things. Transcended, became like the biggest thing in cinema, was so big, so epic, so prolific. Dragon Ball was that. And it affected so many people around the world, man. Like, again, just look out on social media. Look out there and see the impact, the footprint that this man and his work made. It's something really special, man. And for me, when I look online and I just see so much love, so much sadness. I read the letters that Kishimoto and Oda, the two mangakas that created Naruto and One Piece, their letters talking about Toriyama. I mean, I can't read them on stream. I'll cry. You know what I mean? I literally cannot read them to you. I will get really shaken up. And, one of the things you see in those two letters that I thought was so cool, and it's so important, and I think it's a part of the reason why Dragon Ball became so prolific and so big, is that he made it fun, man. It was just fun. Like, and he had created something that, like, young people and older people were able to have fun with. Like, I'll share a commercial. A lot of people sharing stuff today. You know what I mean? I want to show you this. This kind of like really encapsulates it for me. This was a commercial like a year ago for the Dragon Ball Kakarot game.
の頃
オープニングに胸がワクワクした。
撃てるって本気で信じてた。
アニメの翌日はその話で持ちきりでみんなで真似してた。
次回予告はかなりの衝撃。
シス
今週のジャンプって入って
そうそう、続きが知りたくて買いに走ったっけ。気のコントロール密かにやってたよな。
勝負のつかない技の出し合いとか永遠したりしてね。
さあ3倍海洋券だ。俺は海洋券20倍だ。
なんか自分まで強くなった気がしたんだよな。
今もさ、どっかで信じてる。僕らはみんな孫悟空だ。ドラゴンボール Z カカロット。
Yeah, and it just kind of, it really just drives it home, how much it meant to so many people. And he was the GOAT, man. You know, it's funny, like, you know, he created this thing and it eclipsed a lot of other media and it became, you know, as big and as crazy as it is. But later in life, too, for me, I kind of revisited the actual comics, the manga that he did. And later in my life, in the past couple of years, to go back to the actual manga and just see that he was like an absolutely brilliant cartoonist. Maybe one of the best ever. Like just the energy in the panels, the cartooning, the fun, the action. Like he was a master of the craft. Like maybe one of the greatest cartoonists ever. And, you know, created this thing that just, again, it blew up. It became so massive and so big. And you look out on social media and you're just seeing people from all sorts of different niches and all sorts of different walks of life. Dude, everybody was affected by this. Again, like athletes, and you've got so many people that like wanted to push themselves and train and be stronger, you know, because of Dragon Ball. You've got cartoonists that were heavily influenced by Toriyama, you know, people in the East, people in the West. Guys, you've got people in the political spectrum like Marcone sharing Dragon Ball original art by Akira. You've got the foreign minister of China giving reverence today to Toriyama-san and, you know, his body of work. And if you know the history of China and Japan, like for them to kind of do that is pretty wild. Speaks volume. You've got people in the YouTube space, of course. You've got a whole genre of YouTubers that created Dragon Ball work, right? That have dedicated their life, essentially, to the work of Akira Toriyama. But even others like KSI and other people just talking about how much it meant to them. Artists, just almost any type of person that you can think of was impacted by Akira Toriyama. Now, one of the other things that's interesting about this, and I saw this beautiful letter that was written by Danny, by Geekdom, and I recommend everybody read it. And it was interesting because one of the things that he said in his kind of statement was that, you know, Toriyama was a bit of a recluse and he wasn't really an internet guy. And there are so many different interviews throughout his life when he gets confronted about how popular and how epic Dragon Ball is. And he's like kind of shocked. He's like kind of surprised. Like at some level, he didn't even get it or didn't really fully understand just how many people were touched by Dragon Ball and what a big deal it was for them. And, in Danny's letter, he kind of says that maybe now that he has passed on, and if you believe in, an afterlife or other world, I think one of the things that I don't know if it was Oda, but one of the mangaka said, I hope that the afterlife is as beautiful as you made it in your manga. You know what I mean? Because the afterlife in Dragon Ball was cool and well thought out. And then you have Otherworld and the Otherworld tournaments. You've got the like way station thing and the different Kais. It's, so there was a lot of that's in there. But maybe if there is something like that, if there is a collective consciousness that maybe Toriyama now, in the wake of all of this, can kind of like look down and see and understand the full breadth of that impact, because it is massive, gargantuan. And so it's all I can think about. And damn, bro, it is... It's a tough one. So let's start with this one.
When I was about 11, I can remember flicking through the newly begotten digital TV stations on my family's TV, which took our viewing options from around 14 channels to around 400. And at some point, I happened upon a TV show that looked, well, different to everything else. It featured a muscular blonde-haired man fighting an androgynous purple alien, when, all of a sudden, shockingly, the purple alien was cut in half by what seemed to be his own energy disc. And to put things in context here, this was about 5 o'clock in the evening on Irish television, and to see such a gruesome act, well, it shocked me. And it also kickstarted my love of Shonen battle series. This was also right around the time the internet was becoming readily available in Ireland, and considering no one in my school even knew what anime was, I took to the World Wide Web to find out more about it, and while certainly I found other fans of DBZ online, I was surprised with how much ridicule the show was getting. The characters, the story, the artwork, the pacing. There seemed to be a lot of people online who liked anime, but did not like Dragon Ball Z. But I'm not here today to debate the quality or lack thereof of Dragon Ball Z. Let's leave that conversation for another video. Spoilers, I think it's pretty good. But something that I think
it's pretty good too.
Gets lost in that conversation is the skill of its creator, Akira Toriyama, as well as how much his series has drastically changed the landscape of anime and manga as a whole. And so, to really explore this, I'd like to go back beyond Dragon Ball Z, before Super Saiyans, before Scouters, and before Power Levels, and first take a look at where it all began, with the original manga. Which, friends, yes, is exactly why we're here today. So what say we kick back, relax, and talk about the genius of Dragon Ball.
Let's do it!
The reason we're going to be talking about the manga as opposed to the 1980s anime is that I want to highlight how goddamn fantastic Toriyama is at...
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, one of the things that, like I said, later in life, I kind of really began to appreciate just the actual craft and, like, just how fucking good this guy was. Like, it's wild. If you have not ever actually sat down to read the Dragon Ball manga, I highly recommend it. It is a fantastic experience, and from a technical perspective, it's just like perfect. Charles says, I don't always get to catch you live, but I always watch the replay. Today's a sad day. My best memories as a kid was watching Dragon Ball Z with my cousin and collecting all the cards. Stay strong, everyone. RIP to the GOAT. I appreciate that, man. And yeah, dude, it's the fucking same, man. It's like, I was just... I don't want to think about it too much because, like, last night I just went on this, like, mental journey of all the experiences and all the fun. It's like, it felt like this dude literally came into my life and just poured joy into it. Just poured joy into my personal life. And I was just like, fuck, man.
Writing a good manga. And we're going to get into exactly why that is. But first, let's take a trip back to the Shonen Jump offices of the early 1980s. I think one thing that's kind of difficult to get your head around now is that in the early days of Shonen Jump, battle manga just didn't really exist, at least not in the sense they do now. The closest thing was probably Fist of the North Star, which has far less in common with the modern definition of battle manga than it would your contemporary seinen action series. And it was around this time that artist Akira Toriyama began working with Shuhei Publishing. He had various short stories published in Shuhei's assorted magazines, such as his Wonder Island collections, and while he had some degree of initial success, it wasn't until 3 years later that he became a weekly author with his first major title, Dr. Slump. And the series was pretty successful, regularly ranking in at around number 2 or 3 in the popularity polls.
Yep.
But Toriyama quickly grew tired of it, claiming that the episodic nature made it uninteresting for him to work on. And so Jump agreed to let Toriyama work on a brand new series, but only if he could come up with something more interesting than Dr. Slump. And so Toriyama and his editor Torishima set about creating a brand new series, spending 5 days a week working on Dr. Slump, and the remaining 2 days on the as yet unnamed project. And for a period of time, despite the pair's talent and previous success, they had a great degree of trouble coming up with anything they thought would make for a popular series. And so Torishima decided they needed to scrap the project and continue with Dr. Slump. But before doing so, he visited Toriyama for one final pitching session, which lasted late into the night. And just as it seemed like nothing of fruition was going to come, Toriyama's wife, serving the pair tea, remarked how she thought it was unusual how her husband would watch old kung fu movies while drawing Dr. Slump. And this was the eureka moment between the two. Torishima figuring if Toriyama liked kung fu movies so much, then Toriyama's next project should be an action martial arts series. And so the seed of Dragon Ball was planted. It kind of blows my mind to think how if Toriyama's wife hadn't brought the pair tea in that one moment, the landscape of modern manga and anime could be drastically different.
Yeah, it is crazy, man. You know, that kind of reminds me of the story of the two dudes that made the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and how they were just like throwing ideas together, and then like it was almost a meme of the Ninja Turtle that then they just kept like expanding on, and then it becomes the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, right? And these little moments, man, it reminds me of something Steve Jobs said. He said, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking backwards. Like when Jobs was in college, he would sit in on a calligraphy class, and he just did it because he thought it would be cool. And years later, he like, when making Macintosh, is worried about what the font looks like and like the actual aesthetics of what's on the computer. And without that class, that calligraphy class, you don't get an aesthetically pleasing computer screen. And because Microsoft just copied everything Apple did, you probably wouldn't get it at all. It wouldn't be prevalent in any way the way that it was. You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them when you look back.
After running a successful prototype chapter in the form of the one-shot called Dragon Boy, the pair set out in shaping their new series to suit a long-form story. And so it was in 1984's issue 51 of Shonen Jump magazine that the very first chapter of Dragon Ball was published. Early Dragon Ball has this great road trip vibe to it, with Goku and Bulma having to find places to camp, eat, and also getting into the various martial arts based encounters the series would later become so famous for, as they search out the 7 Dragon Balls, which, once gathered, will grant a single wish. The story, at least in the beginning, has a decidedly small-scale charm to it, resembling far more Dr. Slump's episodic-based comedy than that of the long-form storytelling of Dragon Ball Z. And these early chapters are charming as hell, mainly down to how fun it is to watch the different characters bounce off one another. Goku, Bulma, Krillin, Lunch, Master Roshi, all these characters have a particular tone and personality to them. And I think what really sells them is the terrifically expressive artwork.
Yep.
I think Dragon Ball, far more so than his later work, is where you can really see one of Toriyama's strongest aspects. his exceptional character designs.
Yep.
He seems to have an effortless way of working all the fundamentals of good visual language into his illustrations. Each character strikes a clear, readable silhouette, and are all constructed from shapes in a way that play up their core personality traits.
Yeah, dude.
Take Goku, for example. I think if you were to break down his character into 3 fundamental parts, you could say he's innocent, energetic, and powerful. Now let's look at the first illustration of him from the first page, and see how Toriyama has represented these 3 different aspects. He has the proportions of a small child, and that goes some way in showing his innocence, but maybe even more so, look at the soft shapes that make up his body. There's no hard right angles, just gentle sloping curves. And curves have the effect on our brain of signaling youth or a lack of danger.
It's true. We've talked about this before, but this is something you learn in art school or film school. It was something we talked about a lot in animation classes. You know, there's a reason that villainous characters, especially in like really good old animations, like early Disney, you know, Disney Vault kind of stuff. Look at Ghibli. The villains will have harsh angles and a lot of triangles, right? Think of the Wicked Witch, you know, Jafar. These villains, very angular, a lot of triangles, while more positive characters, heroic characters like Genie have rounded edges and are soft. So that kind of aesthetic gets caked into character design. It's a big part of it.
They generally naturally occur in younger creatures like babies, puppies, and kittens. And so a curved line can give off a gentle, more playful feeling than that of a jagged one. And this is a principle that carries across through all design. Even look at how different an effect it has when a room is constructed from curves as opposed to one constructed from harsh angles. Toriyama has used this visual language to signal to us that Goku is at heart a young, innocent child. But he's also offset this aspect of his character by doing just the opposite with his hair, using his disheveled locks to create a wild, jagged pattern, which signals to us that there is an edge and an energy to Goku's personality. Like, okay, this is gonna look a little silly, but just watch how different a vibe he gives off if we take away his spiky hair. See,
Thanks,
look at this
Chillin.
fucking
Appreciate you, man.
nerd. And then finally, the power aspect of his character. Some of this comes from his chunky little body, but generally Toriyama is great at showing power and solidity through a character's pose and gesture. Case in point, just look at the wide, stable stance Goku has taken here. Because of how well drawn it is, it means you can feel Goku's weight going down into his feet. His low center of gravity making the little guy feel stable and immovable despite his tiny size. And so, with subtle visual cues like this, we get a character who all at once feels innocent, energetic, and powerful. And you can see this same mastery of visual language in so many of the characters from Dragon Ball. Like, look at how Master Roshi's body is just a giant square, meaning even though he's drawn as an old man, there's still a strength and a solidity to his character design. He also plays off the juxtaposition between characters. For most of Dragon Ball, one of Goku's primary visual factors is how small he is.
Yep.
And again, this makes us subconsciously think of cute things, but also, whenever he faces off against a much larger opponent, it creates this great David versus Goliath aesthetic, making us root for the little guy all the more. This same mastery of visual language extends even into the machinery of Dragon Ball. Generally, machines in most medium are drawn to look very angular, as to express their manufactured nature. But check out how soft and even cute a lot of Toriyama's machine designs are. His deftness with these design elements is what gives Dragon Ball's world such a fun and bouncy feel throughout, and is one of the primary factors in it being such a pleasure to read.
Yeah.
There's definitely a conversation to be had about how Toriyama's style evolved into the more angular, rigid look of DBZ, but let's leave that for another day. If you want to see more of his fantastic character work, then look no further than the excellent Dragon Quest series, where Toriyama did all the monster and character designs, or even check out the classic Super Nintendo RPG Chrono Trigger.
Yep.
I especially love the work he's done on the character designs for the main party here, the various divergent timelines they come from, all tied together by Toriyama's terrific artwork. However, while Toriyama's exceptional draftsmanship goes a long way to making his early work so endearing, simply being a great illustrator is only about halfway to becoming a great comic or manga artist. as you still need to know how to structure a page of a comic and to make the story flow.
Oh my god, his flow and fucking layouts, dude. Oh my god. It's like, it's still, I think it's still the best. And especially the early Dragon Ball stuff. It's just, it's so good. The energy and the flow in the pages.
Flow for the reader. Kotaku ran a pretty interesting article on this last year based off a report by the Japanese website Nikkaido Renji, which broke down how Toriyama uses a Z pattern and careful placement of each individual visual element to guide the reader's eye, and showed how even a subtle change to the layout, like moving a speech bubble, can completely break the visual flow of a page.
100%.
But I think where Toriyama takes this concept even further is how he portrays time in each individual panel. Yeah. This might sound a little weighty, but hear me out here.
No, it's true.
Let's look at the panel
true.
from chapter 36, the fight between Krillin and Bacterian. At first, it might seem like you're looking at a still image, and you are, certainly, but check out what happens when we follow the visual instructions Toriyama has laid out for us. We start here in the top right corner, as one does when reading Japanese manga, and immediately the speed lines take us down the path of Bacterian's punch, which ends with him swiping at air. Then we follow Krillin's speed lines up, concluding on him, letting us know that he has dodged the attack. And while you could look at this image as portraying a single instance in time, really, if we follow the flow of the illustration, what we're actually getting is two events happening in sequence. One, Bacterian's punch, and the second, Krillin's dodge, thus creating a sequential event from a single image. And you can see this same technique at work in so many of Toriyama's panels, even playing around with the sequence of events in order to alter their effect.
I mean,
structuring it like we see here.
You can just feel the energy. You know what I mean? Like, you can just feel it in the panels. And it comes across. I mean, you know, the animators obviously are influenced by what is the bedrock of it, and that's the manga. So you don't get Dragon Ball the way that it is without this just craftsmanship. You know what I mean?
Here it gives the impression that Krillin dodged Bacterian's punch right at the last second. But check out this panel, where Jackie Chun dodges first and Yamcha's attack follows, giving the subtle feeling that the wily master is several steps ahead of the younger, less skilled fighter. And so, when you take into account Toriyama's draftsmanship that allows him to create such bold, expressive artwork, couple that with his ability to imbue each panel with a sense of timing and movement, and then structure all of that within a page layout that just seamlessly flows, what you get is one of the finest technical examples of any manga. As important as the visual component to Dragon Ball is, there's still one other major factor that we have yet to touch on, an aspect that once added, skyrocketed Dragon Ball's popularity to heights from which it never returned. Up until about chapter 28, this has been a relatively simple story about Goku and Bulma looking for Dragon Balls. But then, Goku and his newly begotten rival Krillin begin training under the invincible old turtle hermit, Master Roshi.
Let's go!
They have to deliver milk on foot wearing these massive weighted turtle shells, dodge angry hornets while tied to a tree, and swim through vicious shark-infested waters, all with the purpose of training their body and mind so that they can become strong enough to enter the strongest under the heavens world martial arts tournaments. And while these chapters are a lot of fun, when you look closely at them, you can see the focus of the story slowly start to shift. These chapters introduced the very simple but absolutely fundamental concept of growth to Dragon Ball's story. This was a mainstay of many sports titles at the time, but had never really been implemented into a series centered around action. Much more common were these straight-up badass characters like Kenshiro, who would generally dominate their opponents with little to no effort. But now we had Goku, a child who was not always strong enough, who occasionally lost fights, someone who would get their ass kicked, but was going to get up the next day in order to train and try again. And hell, I think that's a fantastic thing to write a story about. And a message that deeply resonated with a young Japanese audience, taking Dragon Ball from around rank 6 to 8 in the Shonen Jump popularity polls to a consistent number 1. This concept really is, to me, the spirit of shonen-style storytelling, that it's okay to lose a fight, that it's okay to fail once in a while, because all you really have to do is get up the next day and try again. And do that enough times and you'll eventually get there. You'll become whatever it is you are meant to be. And certainly you could argue that later series took this to ludicrous extremes, and that there are other titles that have taken this concept further and executed on it better. But regardless, I think it's fascinating to go back now and look at where it all began. And to me, this is the genius of Dragon Ball.
Oh yeah.
Friends, I want to thank you for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video and would like to help me create more like it, consider heading over to patreon.com/supereyepatchwolf, where for a single $1, you can become an official member of...
Yeah, man. He's the GOAT. Okay, so this one's a little bit tougher. This is an actual interview with Toriyama from a long time ago. And so it is translated. We're going to need to read a lot of this. But this is being shared around a lot because it really shows you kind of more of behind the curtain. Who is this guy?
それからテレビでもアニメーションで皆さんご覧になってらっしゃるんですけれども、ドクタースランプをお書きになってらっしゃる方でいらっしゃる。
Before Dragon Ball.
その中のあられちゃんというのはもうご覧になったことがなくてもあられちゃんという名前をお聞きになったと思いますけど、その作者が今日のお客様でいらっしゃるんです。で、本当はもっと早くおいでいただきたかったんですけど、去年ご結婚式となんか長者番付1位の発表が同時になっちゃったんでごちゃごちゃになって、なんかとても純粋でいらっしゃるこの方はすっかりもう人間が怖くなってお芝居になって今までなんかお顔をお見せくださらなかったんですけど、今日やっておいていただきました。鳥山明さん、今日のお客様です。どうも。こんにちは。よくいらしてくださいました。漫画家とご紹介するべきだと思います。そうです。
Oh yeah, he's a cartoonist. 100%.
じゃあ初めにまずそのご結婚式と長者番付1位の発表とか一緒になっちゃう。
Ranked first in wealthiest person in Japan right before his wedding, and this is again before Dragon Ball. At least I believe so, because they're not talking about Dragon Ball. They're talking about Dr. Slump, which, you know, was a popular manga, but it wasn't even necessarily the ranked number one. But it was very, very popular.
すごかったってのはどういうことで？
いや、そうですね。まさかこう芸能人じゃないですから、漫画家のところへ結婚式とかで報道の方が来られると思ってなかったですから、もうびっくりして。ああいうのテレビでしか見たことないですから、いやあんまりかっこいいもんやないなと思いましたね。
Yeah, he didn't think he was that cool.
お決めになってらしたけど、別にまあそんなに大げさなことじゃないから普通の方のようにしようと思ってました。そこへ長者番付1位の発表が。
そうです。たまたま長者番付の翌日にしかこう式場が空いてなかったもんですから。まさか長者番付の発表がその時あるとか全然考えてもいなかったですから、偶然が重なっちゃって、ちょっと
それで長者番付が1位におなりになったので、この方のそうですけどマスコミではその後感想はとかって言おうと思ったあなたのところをお尋ねになろうと思ったら、
そうなんです。近所の人が多分結婚式のことを聞きに来たんちゃうか思って、で。結婚式のことですかってそれで分かっちゃったみたいですね。
じゃあ結婚式もだって言うんで今度結婚式場にわーっと皆さんいらしたんですか？
そうですね。
あら、じゃあもう皆さんびっくりなさいましたでしょ？
びっくりしましたね。僕が一番びっくりしました
ね。でもご結婚式は滞りなく。
おかげさまで。
おめでとうございます。ですからまあ新婚でいらっしゃるわけですね。
もう。ほとんど1年になりましたけど。
ね、で、奥様も漫画を描いてらっしゃる。
はい。僕よりキャリアがあるんです。
そう。
Yeah, his wife was in comics even before him.
本当はこれ徹子の部屋という部屋でございますが、いつもこういうことはあまりしないんでございますけれども、せっかく奥様でいらっしゃいますので、三上なちさん。
そうです。
おっしゃる方で、まあとっても可愛らしい本当に、まあ、ごめんなさいたまたまちょうど徹子の部屋ってのは本当はここに壁があるべきでございますテレビを映す関係上こっちに壁がございませんで、ちょうどご主人様の真正面のところに座ってらっしゃるので、ご主人様は、まあ、心強いのとやっぱりちょっとお照れになるのか、奥様のこちら。
He's so shy that they sat his wife so that he could very easily look over to her for comfort.
まだこう結婚してキャリアがないもんですから家事で忙しい。
名古屋の方名古屋の方。
そうです。でできないとか
漫画が
容量が悪いんです
すごいあれですね。奥様が漫画を描いてらっしゃるんだけど、結婚してキャリアがないから結婚に対しての、そっちにもう集中すると、すぐ漫画は描けないと、容量が悪いと。
時々手伝ってもらってますけど。
あ、そうなんですか。じゃあ
She helps him with his work, though.
その点は助かってます。
She's a lifesaver in that respect. I remember we just saw that she's actually the one that like kind of makes Dragon Ball happen by coming in with the tea at that right moment, right?
あった部分ですけどね。知らない人だとこう例えば話を考えてたりする時でも平気で話しかけたりしますけどね。その点はこう自分でも書いてましたから、どの辺がしんどいとかわかるみたいです。
ああ、それじゃあいい方と。
そうですね。
でもすごく純真でいらっしゃるんだけれども、ご結婚なさるのにちょっと同じ愛知県の在住の漫画家だから会ってみようということで何かお会いになったんですね。
一番最初ですか。そうです。あれはたまたま奥さんの親戚の方が同じ町内だでこう連絡を取って、ほんならこうめったにいないですからもう同業の人と会ってみようかなと思って。
あ、そう。
でもう同業の人が集まって5人ぐらいで最初は。
少女漫画を描いてらっしゃる。
そうです。少年漫画の人はもうほとんど東京へ出ちゃいますけど、少女漫画家の方はやっぱり女の人ですから、地方でやってる人が多いもんです。
あ、そう。そういうことでお会いになって、で、まあ本当にご本人もまあ非常に純真でいらっしゃるんですけど、なんかその時特にお会いになる時は割と純真を。
そうですよ。だって僕より年上ですもん。
ああ、そう。だから純真を装ったんですか、あなたは。
いや、純真を装ったわけじゃないですけどね。女の人とめったに喋ったことなかったですから。
I had hardly ever spoken to a woman before that.
それでは漫画に反映してますか？
あんまり。
Whether it's reflected or not, I'm not really sure. I wonder too, because eventually it becomes a pretty big thing. Like when Goku meets Bulma, he doesn't even like know about women, so he's like so confused about her like body parts and stuff like that. So I wonder if that kind of innocence is put directly into the Goku character, right?
何しろとにかくこのあられちゃんの出てきますドクタースランプがどんなにヒットしたかということで、まず漫画になりました。これは連載を始めしてらっしゃるんですね。
はい。
雑誌に。
そうです。
連載、それはジャンプに。
そうです。ドクタースランプっていうのは連載だったんですけど、一番最初はもう読み切りで始まったですけど。
でもまあ、話が後先になりますけど、いろんなことがあってジャンプにお書きになることになったきっかけは、あなたのお名前は鳥山さんなんだけれども、ジャンプの担当の方が何という？
鳥島っていうんです。
ね、あなたが
鳥島さんってややこしいんですよ。
あなたが鳥山さんでジャンプの編集の係の方が鳥島さん、でその方が書いてみないかっていうことで読み切りで、で読み切りは成功したんですか？
いや全然ダメだったみたいです。
どういうところでダメってお分かりになったんですか？
こう雑誌の最初の
In the front of the magazine, there's this survey form to fill out. Tell you the circle ones that were interesting.
それで集計すればわかるんですけど。
It was absolutely dead last. His story.
思いっきりドベっていうのは面白くないとかそういうこと？
そうですね。
Apparently, it wasn't received well at all.
でも鳥島さんという方は随分勇気のある方ですね。そのまままた。
Yes.
そうですね。だからもう少し面白いのを書いてみろよとか言われて、あんまりそれまで書いたことなかったですから。
そうですってね。普通こういうバーッと本の売れる方、連載を始める方っていうのは必ず漫画の何かの賞をお取りになったり、それから投稿漫画少年だったりするのが普通だそうですけど、あなたの場合はもう何にもその前そういうのないのね。
そうなんです。 会社行ってまして。
何の会社？
広告代理店みたいな形でこうデザインとか絵を描いたりとか。
でも絵はじゃあお好きでいらしたの？
絵は一応好きでした。というかそれしか取り柄がなかったというか。
じゃあもう小さい時から絵は描いてらしたんですか？
普通の人よりちょっとたくさん描くっていう程度ですけど、教科書なんかは割ともういたずら書きでいっぱいでしたけど。
だけど漫画をね。
Did you all doodle? Did you guys doodle when you were in high school? Did you doodle on like your notepads and things like that?
読んだりその漫画を投稿したりって少年では全然ないんです。
漫画っていうのは小学校ぐらいの時に読んだ記憶があるぐらいで。
すごい昔の、ね。
そうなんですよ。だからもう間が全然抜けてるんですね。
でとにかく今我のお話を申し上げようかしらと思ったんだけど、そういう連載を始めたとにかく本になった初版で190万冊。
そう聞いてますけど。
すごい数ですね。まあ漫画。
1.9 million. That's huge, dude.
そしてその1巻から9巻まで今出ている。
はい。
全部でトータルすると22
million copies?
それぐらいですか。
すごいですね。でも、それで少女番付1位におなりになって、そういう全てこういったお仕事をしていらっしゃる方の中でもひっくりずば抜けて長者番付全日本で35位っていうのはやっぱり随分すごいんじゃないでしょうかしらね。
そうですかね。いや僕が金のこととかあんまりピンとこないもんですから。
See, like even here, it's like you can kind of see the spirit of the man, and some of these things that are like he's like, I suppose so. Well, things like money, I can't quite picture. So, and he's like just not taken by it. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's the best way I can explain it is he's not taken by the success, you know, and just seems to be just this kind of shy artist, storyteller, enthusiastic but reserved.
そうでしょ。それでご自分で名古屋にお住まいでいらっしゃるとあんまりどのぐらい植えてるかっていうその感じっていうのは分かんないんですって。
だから東京へ来てとかああいう時にこう本屋の店先の平積みにこう積んであったりすると本当に売れてるのかなと思ったり。
It's kind of cool.
なんか段ボールいっぱいなんかこんなお手紙が来たりして。
そうです。せいぜい来て10通ぐらいだからどうやって返事を書こうかなとか思ってましたけどね。段ボールでドサッと来ちゃったからびっくりしました。最初だから返事は必ず出しますからとか偉そうに書いちゃったら、読むのだけでも大変。
You see him looking at his wife too.
ではそんなに評判
It's just beautiful,
な
man.
かったのに、そんなにすごくみんなが読み始めたのはどのぐらいの？
ですね。いや、ドクタースランプという漫画に関しては最初からまあいいところは言ってたと思うんですけど。
なるほど。じゃあ初めに1回お出しになりましたよね。そしてその時にそのアンケートで良くなかったっていうのは別のものなんですね。
それが一番最初に本に載ったっていう作品ですけど。
それ今お読み返しになってみると面白い。どうですか？
いや全然面白くないですよ。恥ずかしいですよ。
本当に。そしてドクターそれから先の1年間というものはなかなかボツになるばっかりだったんです。
そうです。書いても。
Yeah, so he kind of has this like little Michael Jordan part early on in the career where it's not working. First thing didn't work, and he just kept going and kept getting rejected. And like, I guess that's not technically what happened with Michael Jordan because Michael Jordan was actually talented, but he wasn't a team player. So his high school coach kept him off the team and taught him discipline and all of these different things. But it's that similar story of like the sort of scorn or the pain from the first rejection becomes the sort of fulcrum for all of that effort and the desire to actually become good and great at the craft, you know?
僕自身は全然しんどくなかったですけど、こうそれまで書いたことないもんですから、 どんどん自分で少しは上達してるなっていうのが分かって面白かったです。
暮らしはどうしてらしたか、その間。
その間ですか、いやー、失業の身ですからね、ほとんど。おふくろにタバコ買ってくるから150円ちょうだいとか、
Wow.
ちょっと喫茶店へ行ってみたいから
Wow.
200円くださいと。
そういう生活。
そうなんです。
でもその時になんかものすごく今おっしゃったように、なんかもう何百枚ももう絵を描きになって、そこが一番お勉強だったんですって。
そうですね、500枚ぐらい描いてましたから、あの時点で割とめきめきと腕は上がってきたと思うんですけど。
でもその間その鳥島さんという方は、編集の方は随分そのあなたをその励ましたりいろいろなさった方なんですか、その間中は。そうでもない。
励ましたというか、割とこう書いて送ると「ダメだな、全然面白くないよ」とか言われて「もっと面白いのを書いてみたら」とか言われて、そうですね、結構負けず嫌いな方ですから、面白くないと言われて向かってきて、
I really don't like to lose. And so I kept trying. Yeah, it's so interesting, man.
約それが1年。
そうです。で、それでたまたま博士物を書いて、この女の子を作ったロボットの女の子を主人公にしたらっていうことで始まったのがドクタースランプ。
のり巻き博士がのり巻きせんべいという名前の先生の博士なもんですから、そこにあられっていうのはおせんべいのことあられっていう、それでそのあられちゃんっていうの、のり巻きせんべいっていう名前にしようっていうのはどういうところから出たんですか。
いやー、ほとんど何も考えてなくて、なんとかべいとか古臭くて面白いなと思って、どうせならせんべいとかにしてそれから名字を考えてたら、のり巻きというのは結構面白いからって。
それでのり巻きせんべいって、じーっとするとね非常に古めかしいちょっと字のようですけれども、でこのあられちゃんっていうキャラクターが出てきたらば、とにかくもう大変で何しろキャラクター商品っていうのがいかにこのあられちゃんが受けてるかっていうの、キャラクター商品だけで800種類ぐらい、もっとなりました。
それぐらいだと聞いてますけど、
とにかくもうとにかくお人形とかそういうものも全部ですけど、もう下敷きでも筆箱でもとにかくそういうもの全部でしょ、ハンドバッグとか。
もういつ子供ができても学用品買わなくても大丈夫なぐらい。
必ずあなたのところにそのサンプルは来ます？
いただいてます。
でなんかうちの中にも入りきれないんですって。
はい、今はちょっと新しいうち建てたんですけど、それまではちょっと狭い家だったですから入りきれなくて、借家を一軒借りてそこに入れてましたけど。
Rented another house to put all of his shit.
プールみたいなもん。
そう。プールとか布団とか。
全部あられちゃう。
そう。見てて気持ち悪かったですけどね。
でもいちいちそれはあなたのところにこういうもの作りたいけどこういうもの作りたいけどっていうのはあるんですか。
いや、それはないですけど、こういうのができましたっていうので。
でもそれはあなたはそのよくわからないけど大きいお出しになってらっしゃるんですか。
いや、僕はもうほとんど漫画描くばっかりで手一杯ですから、そういうのは編集部の鳥島さんとかにお任せして。でも800種類っていうと口で言っちゃうとあれですけど、いろんなものがもうね、こういうものとこういうものとこういうもので、これでまだ3つですからね。こういうのが800来たらすごい。じゃあお子様がお生まれになったらもう全部揃っちゃうって感じですか。 でも使えないですけどね。
どうしてです？
いや、もし恥ずかしいとか言われたら、こんなん昔流行った漫画じゃないかとか言われたらかっこ悪いですから使えないですよ。
奥様の方ちらっとご覧になったりして今こう、奥様さっき漫画家でいらっしゃるってご紹介したし、いろんな時とっても助けてくださるっていうけど、なんかお書きになる時に相談するとかそういうことはどうなんですか。
いや、たまにあります。やっぱりこれ面白いかなとか。で奥さんの方が服とかああいうのにはやっぱり詳しいですから。
お洋服とかね。あられちゃん、
こんな服を描いたけどナウいいかなとか全然ナウくないよとか言われて
でもあられちゃんはあれなんでしょ、いろんなこうお帽子とかなんかいろんな種類、さっきちょっと映りましたけれど、初めにいろんなこうあれはこう帽子、あれによってもいろんなことができることが違ってくるんですか。このロボットなんですね、このあられちゃんっていうのは。かわいい。
そうです。いや、毎回こう同じ格好してても面白くないから思って、その時々によって気分で適当に服を描いてるだけですけど。
じゃああれはああいうふうなお帽子を持ってって、お出かけの時なんかいろいろ変えるという。
そうですそうです。
まあ可愛いこと。今たくさんそれぞれ。でもこのあられちゃんが眼鏡をかけたっていうのもとてもエピソードが面白いのね。
そうですね。こうなんかもう。
Yeah, you can see how like he keeps kind of saying things like, "Oh, I just thought it would be fun," or "I thought it would be silly," or "I thought it would be funny," and that's just so much of a part of his process. So like, you know, Dragon Ball at some level is like a show where all the characters, or at least all the Saiyan characters, are named after vegetables and food. You know what I mean? So like he just does stuff like that. He just thinks that certain things are funny or quirky or whatever, right?
と思ったし、あとあんまり眼鏡をかけた女の子が主人公になったことがないとか、あと僕女の子描くとみんな同じ顔になっちゃいますから、特徴づけるように眼鏡をつけて。
でも考えてみると眼鏡をかけた女の子が可愛いっていうふうにみんな子供たちが思うっていうのもとてもいいことだと思うんですよね。
そうですよね。別にこう自分が眼鏡かけてるせいか知らないですけど、別に眼鏡かけた子がたくさんいても平気だと思うんですけどね。
そうですよね。じゃあ眼鏡をかけてる女の子たちにとってはとてもそれがキャラクターがね皆さん好きになったことは良かった。
そうですね。自分が今まで眼鏡かけてて恥ずかしかったけど割と平気になったという手紙とかねもらった時は結構嬉しかったですけど、
でもまあそのロボットなのに眼鏡をかけてると面白いだろうっていうところのアイディアだったんだけれども、そのうちこう取ろうとも思ってらっしゃるんですね。
そうです。眼鏡かくの結構面倒くさいですから、もうそのうち取ろうかなって言ったらこれもう今特徴になっちゃいましたから、取れなくなっちゃいましたね。
だから芸能人っていうか若い歌手の方なんかでもみんなとってもこの大きな眼鏡をねかけてらっしゃると、あられちゃんみたいなんてみんなが言ったりするぐらいじゃもうお取りになれないわけ。
そうですね。
あられちゃんの眼鏡は、
もう特徴の一つになってますから。
こういうテレビにお出になるというかこういうスタジオにいらっしゃ
It's
る。
his first time going on television.
初めてです。
いかがですかテレビのスタジオっていうものの感想は。本心をおっしゃっていただくと。
こんな広いところでやってると思う。本当に部屋でやってると思ったんです。
私の部屋で。
そうです。
このぐらい広くやればいいですけど、これやっぱり普通の部屋数にしたらやっぱり随分大きい部屋でしょうもんね。
そうですよね。
窓も大きいですしね。あそこはもう壁なんですよね。水色の空のところははっきり言うと。
なるほど。別に向こう空があるわけじゃないですもんね。
そうだけどいかにもあれですね空のようにしていただいてますから、やはりお家で見てらっしゃる方はそこの広々したお家なかなかないですから、やっぱりせめてねこう、セットこれも随分いろいろ窓をつけたりセットいろいろ変えたんですけど、これが一番なんか定着したスタイルなんですけども、でもああいうふうに人がこう、コマーシャルとかやりますのでいろいろ人がいるんだけど、ああいうのは思ってもいらっしゃらないことでしたか、それじゃ。
こんなたくさん見えると思ってなかったですね。いや緊張しますね。恥ずかしいです。
でも結婚式の時の取材なんかはあったんですよ。
ありましたね。なんか
A press conference?
記者会見とか言うよね。
あ、そう。じゃあ梨本さんとかああいうような人も来たんですか？
いや見えなかったと思うんですけど、そんなに大したあれじゃないと思うんですけどね。
でなんかご質問あったんですか、そういう記者の中から。
いろいろと。
どんな質問が一番多かったですか？
どんな質問、やっぱりその前が長者番付に載ってましたから、
Money this, money that.
どうのこうのとか。
そういうことで、大変ですね、マスコミでもミクシャに。
いや大変ですね。いやまさか漫画家がそういうふうに見られると思ってなかったですから。
ましてあまりそこで頓着なくお書きになったとすればね。
そうですよね。
びっくりなさる。みんな人のお金の使い道まで心配してくださるなんておかしいでしょ。ちょっとコマーシャルが。
どうも。
キラさんは非常に凝り性でいらっしゃいまして、なんかテレビゲームが流行った時はとてもテレビゲームに熱中なさいま
Yes,
す。
video games.
そうですね。割と本当に凝り性というか一つのことしかできないもんですから、それだけになっちゃうんですよ。
そうすると漫画の方はどうなんですか？
ちょっと締め切りに 間に合わなかったこともありますけどね。
それからとても可愛いんだけれど。
That's funny because, as you know, if you were a big time follower of Dragon Ball, sometimes he would wait till like the very last minute and then just like rush out a chapter for Shonen. So yeah, no, he was a procrastinator. He liked playing video games and shit like that. 100%.
自分が欲しいものがあると、それをもう漫画にお書きになって何枚も何枚もお書きになるんですね。
しつこい方なんですよね。一時車が欲しくて、その車をもう何百枚と絵にして描いて、こんな色にしたら可愛いかなとか。奥さん呆れてましたけど。
うちの中でそれをいっぱい書いて見せるわけ、こういうのが。
そうです。これはいいだろうとか言って。
Oh wow, that's kind of fun.
何枚も見せてると、もういいよとか言われる。
でも2、300枚書くとは随分お仕事の合間にお書きになるわけでしょ。
そうですね。合間というか仕事の時間も削ってやってましたけど。
それを欲しい時は。
そうですね。
でなんか鳥が欲しい時は今度そればっかりお書きになったんですまた。
そうなんです。小さい頃からそうだったみたいで、馬が欲しいと思ったら馬の絵ばっかり描いたりとか。
That's kind of interesting.
だんだん上手になるんですよ、何百枚もお書きになったら。
そうですね。やっぱり同じのばっか描いてるから少しは上達すると思うんですけど。
ねえ、でもそれ車欲しい車欲しいとおっしゃって車の絵をお描きになったらば、車は買ってもらいになったんですか。
やっと OK が出て、おかげさまで買わせていただきました。
でも奥様はあなたがあんまり車の絵をお描きになるので、あなたのお母様にこうなんですよ絵描いてっておっしゃったら、お母様が
昔からそうだって。
子供の時からそうだ。今また何か欲しいものがあるんですね。
今はね、小さいバイクが欲しくてそればっか書いてますけどね。
今日持ってきていただけばよかったわ。こういうのが欲しいって、でみんなに見て、うち中っても奥様と
ほとんど奥さんばっかりですけど、アシスタントの子とかに見せたりして、いいだろういいだろうとか。
でも可愛いのね。でそれはもう物が手に入っちゃうとどうなんですか。
手に入ると次のものに対象は移りますけどね。
じゃあ今はその小さいバイクの。
そうです。欲しいんですけどね。
まだ OK 出てないんですか。
いや一応出ましたけどね。
でも
本当にちっちゃいバイクなんですけどね。10万円もせんようなや
つ。でもやっぱりいろいろそうやって。
そうですよ。あんまりね、昔から貧乏症でしたからあんまり高いの買えないんですよ。勇気がないから。
でも自動車も何かなかなかそんなわけで、人嫌いというか人の中にこうお入りにならないから、お出かけになる時本当に自動車の用事があんまりないんですって。
せっかく買ってもほとんど乗れないですね。仕事で忙しいのもあります。
I'm gonna shut the gambling off soon, so get your last couple rolls in.
好きな方じゃないですから、用事がないと乗らないんですよ。スーパーマーケット行ったりとか。
奥様と一緒にいらっしゃるの。
そうです。スーパーマーケットを回るのが結構好きなんです。
あ、そう、いろんな面白いものあります。
結構ありますよ。あそこはもう一軒で何でもありますから、回ってると結構楽しいんです。
名古屋のどの辺っていうか大体名古屋の市内。
市内じゃないです。ちょっとどっちになるのかな。北か西の方になると思うんですけど。だからそっちの田舎の方のスーパーとかもあって、あっち行ったらここはもう回り尽くしたから今度違うスーパーマーケットへ行ったりとか。
で散々欲しい欲しいとおっしゃって絵描いてお買いになった車で、スーパー回ってらっしゃる。
そう
もっともあれですよね。東京は中央から10分行っても、割とうちがいっぱいあるけども、そちらの方はなんか10分ぐらいだと割とこう。
もう本当に電車で10分も行くともう田んぼとか畑ばっかりになりますから、東京へたまに来ると信じられないですよね。車で何分走ってもまだビルがありますからね。びっくりします。
でもやはりそこにお借
り。Gotta make it out to Tokyo, man. I gotta make it out to Tokyo.
こう人混みっていうのがあんまり好きな方じゃないですから、向こうはあんまり人がいないから結構ホッとしますけど。
でもやはり東京いらっしゃるとそうやって本屋さん覗いてね、ドクタースランプがこうバッとこう積んであると、あるんだなっていう実感は東京の方が。
そうですね。どうしてもこれうちの近所の本屋とか見てると、いや近所やからギリで置いてあるんちゃうかなとか思いますから。
だけどこれから、今 9巻まででさっき申し上げたように2248万部という、大変な部数なんですけれども、これからもまた連載ずっと続けてらっしゃるから、
もうあと少しぐらいはまだ
I can probably keep drawing for a little while
で
longer.
もこのジャンプに連載を始めになりまして丸3年と4ヶ月。
This is 3 years into
一回もお
slump.
休みになったことないんですってね。
はい、ないですね。休むっていう
You don't see that many authors who take breaks, really. Yeah, that's one of the things of like the culture of like manga writers and artists. They just go. And then after this, once he starts on Dragon Ball, I believe he works 16 years straight without missing a week. I'm pretty sure. We can double check that. But the amount of just drawing Dragon Ball and just sitting at that table and just cranking out these pages, insane.
練習です。
でしょう。随分大体何ページを？
大体13ページか15ページぐらいですけど、割とギャグ漫画ですからページ数は少ないから助かってますけど。
でもギャグを考えつくのに時間が随分かかるでしょ？
そうですね。もう本当に3年以上も続けているとネタがなくなってきますから。
でも初めの頃随分ボツになったんで、そのボツになったのから随分
そうなんですよ。たくさん使わせてもらってますけどね。
ちょっとコマーシャルっていう感じだったけども、段ボールでバンバンお手紙が来るようになるともう返事も書けないという、ことだそうですけども、どういうところがこのあられちゃん、いろんな他のキャラクターもたくさん出てるんだけど、子供たちに受けたところだと思いです？
そうですね。こう
Light and easy to read.
随分軽いからだと思うんですけどね。あんまり難しいことはもう僕自身全然考えられないもんですから、全然難しいことは言ってないもんですから読みやすいとは思うんですけど。
なんかあられちゃんを見ていると、読んでいると、勉強はとっても嫌なんだけどもほっとするなんていうお手紙も。
そうですね。割と違う世界に行けたりするんじゃないかとは思うんですけど。
あられちゃんっていうのはロボットだからいろんなことができるんでしょ？
そうです。割と空を飛ぶ以外は。
だからみんなやっぱりそういうとこも。
そうですね。
All right, gambling's off. You fiends.
力が強いとかね。意外なことをしますから。
やっぱりそうすると鳥山さん自身もあられちゃんにはとっても今全力をかけてらっしゃるんですか？お書きになるときに。
そうですね。随分経ってますから、割ともうあられちゃんが勝手に動いてる感じはしますけど。
初めから見るとあられちゃんの全体のこのプロポーションといいますかしら、随分変わってきてるんですね。さっきちらっとあられちゃんが映りましたけど、あれは割と初期の頃のあれで、これが今のあられちゃんだそうですけども、もう体が約
1.5 頭身ぐらいですね。
ねえ、やっぱりこのぐらいだと可愛いでしょうか。初めの頃のはさっき出たのはもっと顔が、これがそう初めの頃ですね。随分
3頭身ぐらいありますけどね。やっぱりこれ僕自身書いてて全然気がつかなかったですけど、なんかそういう手紙が多くなった頃、そんなバカなことはないだろう思って前の見返したら全然違いましたから。
そうですね。さっきのお帽子かぶってないのと、今の帽子かぶってるのとは随分同じ女の子でもね、寸法が
多分狭いコマで走り回ったりするには頭身が短い方が全体の動きが取れるからそうなってったと思うんですけど。
でも本当に確かに漫画に関して、それからお人形劇なんかもそうですけども、頭が大きい方がブフーって前にね、ブフーでもものすごく頭が大きいんですね。やっぱり3分の1は頭でしょうかしらね。で今ちょっとあられちゃん隣にいたのが割と新しいキャラクターなんですって。
お坊ちゃまんっていうやつなんですけど。
お坊ちゃまんなんか似てるような感じがしますけれど、これはちょっと
あれはせんべい博士と敵対するマシリト博士っていうのが、モデルは鳥島さんを
Yeah, it's crazy, huh?
それでマシリトなるほどね。
あれが博士が作ったあられちゃん用に作った全くあられちゃんと同じ構造をしたロボットで。
ちょっと鉄腕アトムに似てるような。
そうです。よく言われますけどね。髪型
本当においでいただいていろいろお話ししていただいてよかったんですけど、漫画少年でもなく何の賞も取ったこともなくいきなりお書きになったこのドクタースランプがこれだけの、大変な人気でご自分もびっくりしていらっしゃるそうですけれども、第27回小学館の漫画賞を このドクタースランプお書きになってからお取りになった。
初めて賞というものをいただきま
いかがですか、もらえる。
す。いや、やっぱり。
Oh, that's nice.
本当に奥さん
So he won the award, and it made him pretty freaking happy. Pretty crazy, man.
April 5th.
I don't know, man. What's up, Danny? It's good to see you, brother. Tough one, man. Tough one. What do you guys think? You want to watch just one more video and then we can do Q&A and get out of here? Do one more and then we'll get out of here. Tough day.
1955. This fella was born. Not only did he have head bumps as a baby that made him stand out, but he also became arguably the biggest manga artist in the world. His name?
Akira Toriyama.
Hey, they had Danny in there.
Akira Toriyama.
Akira Toriyama.
Akira Toriyama.
Akira Toriyama.
Sir, Akira Toriyama.
Toriyama Akira-san.
Toriyama's upbringing was more low-key,
Really?
to say the least.
Danny,
While
that's
he was
awesome.
born in Nagoya within the Aichi Prefecture, the early life of Akira Toriyama composed of living out in the more country area in Kyosu. To compare,
Danny, I literally thought about hitting you up, and if I didn't have plans this weekend, I might have done it. Hitting you up, I was going to fly down to Florida, and we could just literally watch those copies of Dragon Ball that you've got, and just fucking blaze and just sit there and watch Dragon Ball all goddamn weekend. I was going to hit you up and do that. Unfortunately, I've got some family plans, but yeah.
Kyosu has around 66,000 residents, while the big city Nagoya has a rough population of 2 million. Low-key doesn't even begin to describe Toriyama's life, and that's not an insult, mind you. He prefers his day-to-day to be private and normal. Hell, Toriyama even decided to have his wedding at a modest event hall as a millionaire, and still the media had to sink their teeth in and crash the event with unanticipated photographs.
Which we just talked about and covered, right?
When he was a young kid, he liked drawing, and soon learned that he was quite good at it. A skill that, as we know, would wind up being his most valuable asset later on in life. Some of Toriyama's earliest memories as a primary school student include being really proud of a horse illustration he did, and sooner or later he turned into the kid that took drawing a bit too seriously. He even began sketching up cartoon versions of his friends. Seeing as he became the most popular manga artist of all time, it doesn't surprise me in the slightest that he was an art kid. He was probably the type to doodle on his maths exam paper, to be fair to him. During his time as a young lad, one moment changed Toriyama's life forever, and he didn't even know it yet. The location was at his friend's house. The object that Toriyama saw on that day was the comic book. They all belonged to the friend's older brother, and from this point on, Toriyama wanted to become a manga artist. No, that's not what happened at all, actually. He thought they were incredible, and in Toriyama's words, he hit the ceiling when he encountered these comics, but it would take a few more years for his manga writing aspirations to surface. Toriyama has stated that his drawing style was originally inspired by Walt Disney animations and Osamu.
A lot of manga artists said this, that the original Disney stuff was a huge influence on what they did. And you might not like see it all in there. It was interesting. We talked about this in film school when I was in an animation class, because it's really interesting because there's so much distinct, what you would think of as like manga things, but the early Disney character designs and some of those things translate over into the way that they created this stuff.
Tetsuka, the creator of Astro Boy, with that manga actually being one of Toriyama's favorites. In fact, Toriyama and some of his neighborhood friends occasionally went to an art studio called Zugaya-san growing up to draw and ultimately pass the time away. He actually won a prize there for drawing an image from the classic Disney film 101 Dalmatians,
wow,
which he
didn't know
has
about
cited
that.
as a personal inspiration. He was excited and of course continued drawing. The name of the art studio doesn't yield any results when typed into Google. However, the term has been broken down by Holmes, with the Zuga meaning drawing, and the ya portion of the word is referring to a shop, or someone that sells something. The studio was a local business that was just in Toriyama's hometown. Primary school went, and during his time in secondary education, he took part in a design course which set him up for future work. While his notebook was filled with illustrations and he was obsessed with film and TV, he didn't really read many comics in junior high, although he was involved in a manga club in high school as the president, which equipped him with knowledge of what pens to use when he eventually drew manga. Life carried on for Toriyama until sooner than he thought, graduation day flew by. Like most normal young men, he had to make a choice, either pursue higher education or wind up just working a 9-to-5 to cover his ass. I'm not saying that Toriyama isn't extraordinary at what he does, but at this point in his life, he was just a regular Joey, and even
trying
when
to
his
make money,
career
man.
started to take off, he never really changed from a cheeky lad who had a knack for drawing.
Reminds me of Jack Kirby, you know what I mean? And like a little, slightly different coming out of like the depression and whatnot, but like there was this sense of like you do the work, like you need the money, and the money's like the driving force of why you do that.
Just never changed him. I think a lot of men can see themselves in Toriyama's shoes at this point. You're in that position where you need to make smart decisions about your future, as well as the decision that you want to do personally,
Yep.
but you're swayed in directions that might not suit you entirely.
Dude, I'm feeling this shit right now because I have so much that I have to do for YouTube to like, keep the lights on around here and to keep things going on. I would rather just be working on comics all the time. My heart is pulling me towards comics, but my brain and my responsibilities are making me crank out YouTube stuff,
Entirely. Toriyama has said that he was pressured by his parents to get a university education, but as many lads are, they want money now and are sick of the school life. He received good grades throughout primary school and kinda flunked it in high school, probably he was over the whole studying thing. So, as a result, Toriyama leaned into going into the workforce.
I think some of us can relate to that, kind of being over it in high school.
On his terms, however. By his own ambition, Toriyama went to work when he decided he wanted to get out of bed, and honestly, he just didn't seem cut out for the structured workflow of a regular job, quote unquote. On top of the schedule, he also needed to dress appropriately, and all in all, he didn't enjoy the work. I could imagine he felt unfulfilled at this job, and while he was drawing, he wasn't drawing, if that makes sense. After sticking it out for a couple of years, Toriyama quit his advertising job. Illustrations, character design, manga. That was Akira Toriyama's true calling. A calling that he didn't act upon as he spent a year basically doing nothing after he quit. The year was spent going to cafes and reading comics aimlessly, and just kind of being a bum. But then, he needed money for his cigarettes. This is when he developed his first manga on his 23rd birthday, he claims. Which doesn't really line up with the whole chronological order of things.
Dude, I love that like chibi kind of style. A little bit, it's just for whatever reason, some of those designs we just saw remind me of bits of FLCL or Fully Cooley, if you've ever watched it. There's like some moments where they go into like that weird like chibi mode with it. It's kind of interesting.
So it must have been his 22nd birthday. Yeah, Toriyama doesn't have the best of memories, and I don't blame him. With the legendary life that Toriyama has led, there's tons of cool shit to remember. I mean, he met Jackie Chan, his idol, and had an entire art museum dedicated to his work solely, for fuck's sake. Anyway, 1977 was the year that Toriyama drew his first ever manga, known as Away World. For fun and money, let's face it. He then submitted it as an entry into the
and
monthly
people
Young
hated it.
Jump contest. At the time, Shueisha ran a competition called Monthly Young Jump, which acts as a way for new artist talent to get promotion, with the contest winner receiving 100,000 yen.
That's a lot of cigarettes.
To that contest, though, Toriyama initially read an issue of Weekly Shonen magazine, not to be confused with Weekly Shonen Jump, with the prize money being a substantial 500,000 yen as opposed to merely 100,000 by comparison. But the deadline for that was already passed as he was drawing the manga. So he looked to Shonen Jump's Young Award contest instead, which was every month. Toriyama submitted a Weiwa World into the contest, and he took home nothing. Yeah, only his name was published, but this sparked a fire in Toriyama, and he was dedicated more than ever to submit something more successful, win the competition, and become a professional manga author. I feel like if Toriyama actually won the award and received the prize money, he would have just quit and would have been satisfied with what he got. So in a roundabout way,
that's that Michael Jordan shit, man. Would Jordan have been Jordan if that high school coach just let him on the team? I don't know. You know, it's kind of interesting.
Lost. Imagine if there was no Dr. Slump or hell, no Dragon Ball. My initial YouTube career would be down the shitter, that's for sure. Getting back to the contest, however. I equate Toriyama's loss to Conor McGregor losing against Nate Diaz for the first time. After which, an urge to prove who was the best began, and only after defeat, they achieved their dreams. One aspect about A Weiwa World that makes it fascinating is how Eastern and Western characters meet as two different worldviews collide. This one-shot manga perfectly displays Akira Toriyama's fundamental writing habits, taking aspects from multiple cultures and throwing them into one work. In this case, it is the inclusion of samurai and superhero archetypes as main characters. Even though this manga achieves the theme in quite a basic way, it does lay the groundwork for future manga written by Akira Toriyama. A Weiwa World is
I still kind of like it. I kind of want to read this now.
Superman and Astro Boy together. Yes, it's cool to have characters from two completely opposite worlds come together, but all in all, it's not that impressive. Now, if I designed an entirely original character using combined elements from Eastern and Western culture, that is exponentially more creative. That second example is Dragon Ball in a nutshell. No wonder the series was so successful worldwide. It harnesses tropes, philosophies, martial arts techniques, character designs, stereotypes, and stories that every culture can understand on a universal level. So, A Weiwa World tells us that Toriyama likes playing with different cultures and mixing them. Toriyama has admitted before that he hates losing, and that's all evident when he submitted Mysterious Rain Jack into Monthly Young Jump the following year. For those who want to seek out A Weiwa World and Mysterious Rain Jack, they are unfortunately incredibly rare to find in full.
Oh wow,
as they
gotta
were never
hunt them down.
Published at all. The only place where they were actually released were in multiple issues of an old Toriyama fan club newsletter called Birdland Press.
What?
There are copies of Birdland Press magazines floating around out there, but they are going for
Danny? You got any of this shit, bro?
outrageous prices in online auctions. So it is possible to get
any
a
of
hold
that shit,
of
bro?
A Weiwa World and Mysterious Rain Jack, but the ends really don't justify the means here. The only other way to see the manga is through the 1993 Akira Toriyama exhibition book, in which there are only a couple of pages to check out, rather than the full manga.
That's probably easier to find, though, right?
To clarify further, this exhibition book were one of multiple given out during the Akira Toriyama art exhibits. Yeah, I'm not kidding. In the early 90s, Toriyama was so immensely popular and resonated with everyone that his artwork was shown in numerous art museums around Japan. Ironically, the first manga artist in history that was this notable was Osamu Tezuka, who, as documented earlier, is one of Toriyama's key inspirations. After Mysterious Rain Jack was submitted, it fared much better compared to his previous manga work. In fact, it was a finalist, but it still didn't win the contest. The one-shot was actually disqualified due to it being a parody on a licensed property, that being Star Wars. Although this is when Toriyama's luck turns around as a man known as Torishima comes into contact with him. Torishima gave him a call and essentially pushed Toriyama to continue with his manga career.
Now, Danny, is Torishima, is he still, because I feel like he might still be like heavily involved in Dragon Ball and whatnot. Is he one of the guys that was like still helping or no?
Eventually, Toriyama would acquire Torishima as his manga editor, the first of 3 editors in fact. While he was down on his luck before, this call gave Toriyama the encouragement.
Who's the editor that wanted, that kind of gave him the idea for Broly? For the Broly movie? Oh, he helped with Resurrection F's ideas? Okay, interesting.
Pursue this manga pipe dream. Can Toriyama be the next big manga artist? Well, no shit. But at this point he needed to prove himself. In 1978, Toriyama struck again with his official manga debut, Wonder Island. This manga was published into the 52nd issue of Weekly Shonen Jump's 1978 run. Quite similar to Away World and Mysterious Rain Jack, Toriyama's Wonder Island manga was not received too well and ranked last in Jump's popularity poll. The good news is that Toriyama did it. He was in Weekly Shonen Jump. Wonder Island follows a World War II kamikaze pilot named Furusu, who crashed his plane into the Pacific Ocean and ends up on the titular island. He attempts to finally escape, and along the way, he meets all sorts of wacky characters that would appear in various other Toriyama works, mainly Dr. Slump. I mean, the first Dr. Slump movie is even about Arale and Senbei going to this Wonder Island. Only a month later, Wonder Island 2 made its way into Shonen Jump's 1979 bonus issue. The original title for this manga was Wonder Island, Detective Harry's Big Panic, and practically had nothing to do with Furusu's story. Apart from a couple of returning characters and it being set on Wonder Island again, it has no real connection with the first comic. The only reason why it's widely known as Wonder Island 2 is because it was retitled that when the one-shot landed in Akira Toriyama's Manga Theater, a collection of works by the man himself. You can tell in Wonder Island 2 that Toriyama adores cinema, both Eastern and Western movies, and he utilizes them in his manga whenever he can. Terminator, Star Wars obviously, Godzilla, Dirty Harry, Enter the Dragon, and tons of more movies can be found as influences in Toriyama's manga. Whether that be stripping film characters and putting them into his work, or rather taking the basic plot of the movie and tweaking things around, Toriyama loves paying homage to this stuff. Furthermore, today's highlight
Trunks
Island
is John
and
Carter?
Go Detective would wind up being the
total random side note. Remember that guy from Google that said the large language model was sentient like a couple of years back? That guy was like the real life John Connor. But we just all laughed at him and said he was a creep and ignored him. So we deserve what's coming.
Final published Toriyama one-shots before his big break with Dr. Slump. But at this point, in 1979, he is still trying to get a foot into the industry. While he was close to being there, he just needed to smash out a couple of more one-shots before the Slump breakthrough. Released in Weekly Shonen Jump special issue again, today's Highlight Island shares a similar setting, gags, character designs, and even some actual characters from this one-shot make their way into Dr. Slump as cameo appearances. Tomato Go Detective, on the other hand, features a female lead, which is the definitive precursor to Arale-chan from Dr. Slump. Tomato is quirky, childish, and everything that Arale basically became. The intriguing aspect about Arale is that Toriyama only ever wanted to use her in the first chapter, and then replace her with another one of Senbei's robots. If Toriyama would have gotten his way, I don't think Dr. Slump would have taken off as much as it did, to be honest. Quite a lot of Western Dragon Ball fans know what Dr. Slump is, but they see it as Toriyama's side project, or the manga he did before he got big with Dragon Ball. These two statements can't be further away from the actual truth.
Yeah, and this is crazy because I was actually chatting with ChatGPT, and this is something that even the ChatGPT doesn't fully recognize. Like, they still, the AI, and I think it's just because there's like a big Western bias that just think that like he wasn't successful until Dragon Ball, but no, he was like a millionaire. As we saw in that interview, he was voted the #1 wealthiest manga artist in Japan. Millionaire before Dragon Ball.
In short, Dr. Slump exploded onto Weekly Shonen Jump and Arale became a manga icon. Not only was Arale insanely popular in Japan, but Dr. Slump was also the series that single-handedly put Toriyama on the map as one of the biggest manga artists. I mean, Toriyama became a multi-millionaire because of Slump, and that's gotta count for something. Arale was not the Bird Studio mascot for years for absolutely no reason, and while Goku has kinda stolen the show, the character of Arale was still Toriyama's first ticket to Successville.
I'm moving out of Slob City and into Successville.
It was no wonder why the editorial department wanted Arale as the main character. She steals every scene, well, panel, that she's in. Aside from the immense success that Toriyama was having with Dr. Slump, his personal life would also face a drastic change, for the better. Let's roll the clock back to April 1981, when Dr. Slump Chapter 64 was released. Toriyama mentions before the chapter starts that he and 5 other manga artists had dinner together, one of whom was Yoshimi Kato, aka Nachi Mikami, and at the time she was a shoujo manga writer. Toriyama was comfortable around this woman, in which he rarely was towards other women at the time. Toriyama hit it off with her because of this and eventually got engaged in October 1981. Toriyama's wife seemed like a crucial component of his work life at the time when working on Slump.
What's that
She would
saying?
help out on the
What's that saying? Behind every successful man is an awesome woman or something like that?
manga with Toriyama and his assistant, and also helped with keeping the household intact. In similar fashion to how Senbei Norimaki from Dr. Slump married the love of his life, Toriyama did the same in 1982. Anyway, Toriyama continued with Dr. Slump's run while penning a steady stream of one-shot works as well. It seemed like Toriyama was on another level compared to other manga artists, which he kind of was. After Torishima suggested to try writing a kung fu action manga after Dr. Slump, Toriyama created 2 kung
Which
fu
was his wife's idea.
one-shots which became the blueprint for Dragon Ball. They are
Well, I guess it wasn't his wife's idea, but she commented on the fact that he loved kung fu, which gave the other guy the idea to say, like, let's do this kung fu book.
Dragon Boy and The Adventures of Tong Pu, respectively. The reason why Torishima discussed the idea with him is because Toriyama admitted that he adored Drunken Master and other such martial arts movies. The characters in Dragon Boy are direct precursors to the ones found in Dragon Ball. Tang Tong is clearly Goku, as even both of their names derive from the Chinese culture. Tang Tong literally translates to China Boy. Additionally, the master from Dragon Boy is Roshi, and the princess is essentially Bulma. Even the story beats are mostly similar. A boy training out in the wilderness, a martial arts master riding a cloud and holding a staff, boy meets girl, boy is naive about females, boy touches girl's body part in a comedic manner, the pair travels to a specific point using modern vehicles in a Chinese ancient setting, there's artifacts that make a dragon appear, during their journey the pair encounter a monster that Tang Tong must defeat, and we find out that he has a surprise transformation all along. Damn! While Dragon Ball was initially semi-based on Journey to the West, Torishima has said that the influence came later on in Dragon Ball's development. Although Dragon Boy did not have any Journey to the West influence, it still seems deeply rooted in Chinese culture. The second part of Dragon Ball continues the storyline established, with Tang Tong and the princess flying towards their destination. Tang Tong and the princess have something to eat in order to get his strength back. Goku! As the manga wraps up, more details that Dragon Ball uses are apparent. There's a shapeshifter creature who is basically Oolong, and the final monster Tang Tong faces is a hybrid of this and this. A couple of months passed with Toriyama still working on Slump throughout 1983, and then he comes out with the second kung fu manga short, The Adventures of Tong Pu. In fact, this is Toriyama's final one-shot until he started work on Dragon Ball. Along with Tong Pu's face looking remarkably like Goku's final design, this manga introduces the fish-out-of-water element that Dragon Ball has, a similar boy-girl dynamic to Goku and Bulma, capsules that make items appear, etc. Also, how Tong Pu is sent out to investigate alien planets is practically identical to Goku being sent out to destroy Earth, although that concept wasn't in Toriyama's mind until way later on in Dragon Ball. Even after Tong Pu and Dragon Boy were put out in Weekly Shonen Jump and Monthly Fresh Jump respectively, Toriyama still created many sketch images before Dragon Ball. These were shown off in Birdland Press, the Toriyama magazine talked about previously. Around January 1984, Toriyama came up with the concept for the manga serial after Dr. Slump. At this point, it would be heavily based on Journey to
What's it called? The the origin of Dragon Ball, link it into the chat, man. I don't know if I'm going to watch it on stream because I actually have to get out of here. We're closing in on 2 hours. But, yeah, definitely link it into the stream for sure.
West. The first sketch draft of the main characters.
After this video, I got to go pee, and then I got to do, just go through the super chats and the member chats, and then I'm getting out of here.
Only more Journey to the West than Dragon Ball, if I do say so myself. The response from Toriyama's wife was not particularly positive, so he went back to the drawing board, quite literally. The next character draft Toriyama created looks way more like the characters we see
pay me
in the
enough for
Dragon
that
Ball
shit.
manga today. Bulma clearly
This ain't
needed
only
a bit more
nerds.
revision, but Goku seems pretty much how he is in the manga. Along with the second draft sketches, Toriyama developed the story into basically what we know today. Toriyama created the character names also, in which Pinchy was changed to Bulma and Wulong became Oolong. Between the months of May to October, Toriyama concluded both his long-running Dr. Slump manga, as well as the second drafts of Dragon Ball. At last, this kung fu manga phenomenon was about to be released in Weekly Shonen Jump.
Wow.
Akira Toriyama began the serialization of Dragon Ball in November 1984, and it reached its final chapter 11 years later. In the years beyond, we would see countless video games, merchandise, several Dragon Ball spin-off manga, and even a slew of new anime series.
Yup.
But you already knew that. Today we have embarked on what made Toriyama tick and how he got started developing his drawing abilities at
Good
school,
video.
to working at a mundane advertising
You gotta tell
job,
your
to
editor,
slowly
man.
becoming one of the most
You got to tell your editor, man, because this is a good video, bro. He did good on
influential
this.
artists in the modern manga era. This has been the origins of Akira Toriyama.
Wow, that's great. Okay, guys, I gotta go pee real fucking bad. So I'll be right back, okay? And then we'll do Q&A. We'll chill a little bit, and then we'll get on out of here. Again, different kind of stream today, but that's all I really wanted to do was just share my love of Dragon Ball and explain why this dude was such a important person in pop culture. I'll be right back. Don't leave. I'll be back. Should do my Q&A with my Goku blanket on like this. Sad day. Sad day. It's definitely been cool to watch these videos though and just share some stuff and yeah. Crazy. Okay. Let's finish her off, right? Let's do the Q's and the A's and hang out and chat for a little bit. See what you guys got to say. By the way, shout out to everybody that's watching over on Twitter. We actually have more viewers on Twitter than we even do on YouTube. I think a little bit because, you know, it's Toriyama. We usually do like Marvel and Star Wars stuff. But, hey, I really appreciate it. And I think it's cool that they're pushing streams on Twitter. So that's cool. Much love and thank you to everybody. Okay. Here we go. A1 exec FPS says with a $10 holler, that's very generous, man, says R.I.P. Toriyama, the man, the myth, the legend. Yeah, man. I tried to and I wanted to explain why he's such a big deal and why the impact is being felt in so many different like spaces on the internet, regions on the planet right now. It's crazy. So much love and glad we were able to kind of do this today to honor the man in his memory. Trey Bryant, welcome to the Nerdvengers. You are a Nerdvenger now. Lame Peaks, welcome to the Nerdvengers. You are a Nerdvenger now. John, welcome back. Nate M. Ziclucci says, Dune 2 hype! With focus now shifting to Deadpool 3 as the next big movie, what would you say to us MCU fans who crave this Dune-level quality back in the MCU? Have you ever had Dune-level quality in the MCU? I mean, I'd say maybe Winter Soldier, maybe. But no, I don't really think that is something that made the MCU what it is. Civil War? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't think so. I'm working on a big video right now that kind of explains why I haven't given up on Marvel yet, like the real reason. And the more I thought about it and the more I like really looked into it, I think there's somewhat of a like, I think people just think they were incredible movies, and that's why they were successful. And that is just not true. That's not really the measure of the success. Let me give you one example, because I don't want to spoil the whole video, because I did a lot of research and a lot of really interesting things that go into that video. But let me just give you one example. Do you guys remember the quote from Martin Scorsese talking about how the Marvel movies are theme parks? Do you remember that, chat? Anybody? Anybody remember that quote? Do you remember when he made that quote? No, it did trigger me. Geekdom. I mean, I wasn't like out there like freaking out about it, but it triggered me. So ironically, this is what I mean. It's like Scorsese made that quote in October of 2019. This was after Endgame. It was just after Spider-Man No Way Home. Okay. The point is, this was at the height of Marvel's success, you know, within that time period. And you had people like Scorsese and others saying that they're not real cinema. The reason that's important is because there's this weird revisionist history thing that's happening right now where people think all these directors and critics were praising Marvel when it was popping off, but now they're not. And that's not what happened. All throughout Marvel's most successful years, people like Scorsese were deriding it, talking about how it wasn't cinema. So there's not this like acceptance and like thing that happened that was like, oh dude, this shit's actually really, really good. That's not what happened. There were a ton of people saying they're not really good movies during that whole stretch. What I mean to say really is Marvel was successful not because it was acknowledged as being really fucking good. There's actually something else that was going on that made Marvel what it was. I think they were good movies, and I think they're movies that were way better than they had any right to be. All I'm trying to suggest to you is that this idea that we want Dune 2 in the MCU again is ridiculous. It's never been that. It was never that. That's not why it was popular before. And at the height of its popularity, that's not what it was. But again, we'll talk about that more in that video. Obi says, R.I.P. to the legend. Huge impact in our nerdy lives. Hell yeah, man. Monumental. Massive impact. Yeah, I'm feeling better now. But at the beginning of the stream, man, I was like really emotional. Like it really did hit me very hard last night and this morning. I still kind of can't believe he's gone. Rossi says with a 10 spot, really appreciate it. Says, just wanted to let you know I went to the grocery store today and I bought some organic Cheetos. I told my friends while playing Call of Duty about organic Cheetos. The prejudice against them is real. Yeah. Did they tell you it sounded European? Because it sounds European. Jared N says, imagine grabbing a blank sheet of paper and creating/drawing Dragon Ball. Insane. R.I.P. Akira, the greatest to ever do it. Den of Goats, be well, nerds. Hey, man, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Leon with a $10. Very generous, man. Says, I was never big into DB as a kid, and as an adult, I dabble in it from time to time, but now I feel the push to watch it and catch up from the beginning. R.I.P. To one of the greatest of greats. Yeah, man. 100%. 100%. I'm glad, because I've heard that in chat like earlier too. It's kind of like this sentiment of, because we're all big nerds, right? We're all big nerds, and there's some things that we've been into that maybe we're not all into. Dragon Ball is one of those things. There's a good portion of our audience that's into it, large portion of it that is not, and it's just sometimes it's tragic and it sucks, but it takes something like this sometimes for people to really realize the impact that this thing had. And I think you should definitely give it a chance. You know what I mean? And just, if it's not for you, that's absolutely fine. But at the very least, maybe now you have an appreciation of what it meant to so many people and the impact that it made. Trev says with the $10, man, I really appreciate it. Says, watch an OG DBZ on Saturday mornings at 7 a.m. in the early 90s. Rewatching the Saiyan saga over and over again for years on TV. The Ocean dub, because that's all we had in the 90s for DBZ. Yeah, man. So many good memories. So many good memories. Hell yeah, man. Appreciate you. Yova, good to see you. Says, R.I.P. Akira Toriyama. Dragon Ball franchise and legacy will live on forever. 100% it will. 100%, dude. Mars says, member for 22 months, 33-year-old DBZ is so ingrained in my childhood that I used Key Blast as a method to lucid dream. What? That's awesome. I remember going Super Saiyan in my first lucid dream as a kid. Wow, dude. How about that? That's crazy, man. Good for you. That's awesome, man. Thanks for the love. Javier Mendez says, much love, Josh. When you have time, may I get a link to the Discord, or I text you on Twitter to get into the Diamond Lounge? Yeah, hit me on Twitter or Discord, man. We can get you in there. Dazuko says, I was always more of a Naruto kid, but I love DBZ too. Reading Kishimoto and Oda's letters destroyed me. Just makes me think of George Lucas passing. Bro, I know. I got so emotional reading both of those letters. I told you, I can't read them on stream. I'll get emotional. You know what I mean? I'm doing pretty good right now, keeping it together pretty good. So Charles with a 20 spot, man, I really appreciate it again. Says, I don't always get to catch live, but I always watch the replay. Today is a sad day. My best memories as a kid was watching DBZ with my cousin and collecting all the cards. Stay strong, everyone. RIP to the GOAT. Yeah, man. 100%. Chillin says, I've never been into anime, but I'm well aware of Dragon Ball's impact. This is a tragic time for all nerds. Things will never be the same. Take my money. Yeah, man. 100%. I agree. I agree. It's a tough one. Rossi says, this may be a dumb question, but is there a difference between Japanese manga and American comics, if there is any? Yeah, there's a difference. I mean, there's a difference in the way that they're presented, right? Manga is read right to left, and American comics are read right or left to right. That's sort of like a basic difference. There's also a 4-act structure that a lot of manga follows. And usually you have like a hero's journey or a 3-act structure in American comics. So this isn't always the case. It's a little bit of a generalization, but that is a big difference between them. You know, ironically, one of the things that's kind of interesting about manga and the 4-act structure is that it doesn't use conflict or character progression to drive the story forward. So this is kind of an interesting thing. But you think about Goku, you think about Naruto. These characters don't actually develop. Like, Goku is the same that he is as a boy as he is later in life. He has the same drives, the same motivations, the same things that trigger him. He is the same. And you find that a lot in manga, actually. The character doesn't change. The world around the character changes, and the drama is created as you slam that archetype up against different scenarios. Whereas in American comics, we do a lot of tropey things. You know what I mean? So you've got like fridging the character, taking something away from them, taking their powers away, etc., etc. That is much more common in Western comics than it is in Eastern comics. But yeah, you should look up the 4-act structure of manga. It's fascinating. If you look into it and you study it, you'll start to see it in like every manga that you see. So it's pretty interesting. It's not like strictly that, because there are some character changes, like Danny's going on a whole soliloquy about Goku and some of the changes, but generally speaking, that is the case. They actually stay the same. Like Luffy is the same. He is the same in chapter 1 as he is in chapter whatever we're at now, 1100 whatever. He's the same, generally speaking. Whereas a lot of Western comic characters do go through actual character arcs, which has highs and lows. Dr. Wargod says, so who is your Mount Rushmore of American comic book artists? You know, that's a tough one for me. I'm way more of a writer guy than an artist guy. I think that's just because I am a writer. So I don't know if I could give you a Rushmore of artists. I mean, I like Frank Quitely. I like Greg Capullo. Obviously Jim Lee. I even like Liefeld. I mean, I know a lot of people, get down on Liefeld. Liefeld's got, look at all the most popular comics that have ever come out in the West. Most of them are either drawn by Liefeld or they have a cover by Liefeld. So like Liefeld's great. You know what I mean? Like he had an energy to his stuff that I thought was really, really cool. But I can't really give you a Mount Rushmore. You know what I mean? Etoski says, I'm starting Dragon Ball after this. It is decided. Hell yeah, man. Welcome to your new journey. Benjamin says, Benjamin gifted 5 memberships. I really appreciate that, man. Thank you so much. Much love, guys. Appreciate you. Okay. So that's it. That's the stream. But I'll hang out. I'll chill for a little bit and see what you guys want to say. What's on your mind? What are you thinking about? Kirby disrespect? Yeah, I mean, I guess you have to put Kirby on there, huh? I guess you have to put Kirby on there. Did you talk about the Snyder comments already? No, I did not. I did not. No, I did not. Should we talk about that real quick? Should we talk about the Zack Snyder thing? So, Zack Snyder recently went on the Joe Rogan podcast. Actually, it was funny. We were streaming Wednesday, and then somebody said in chat, Zack Snyder did Joe Rogan Experience. And I was like, what? And I thought it was crazy. And then I literally left the stream to go watch it, and I loved it. So, first of all, I'll just say, I thought that was an incredible podcast. I absolutely love Zack Snyder. I think he is a beautiful human being. The energy, the enthusiasm. He has a lot of qualities that's similar to Akira that we talked about. This boyish enthusiasm and true love for experiencing life. I also, as a fan, I'm one of those Joe Rogan fans that kind of misses the old Joe. And so this podcast to me felt like vintage Joe, because Joe was really enamored and just really in the moment and present with Zach, and didn't bring up any culture war shit, which was fucking awesome. So I'm one of those Joe Rogan fans, so I loved the podcast. Couple of different really interesting things that were said in it. The one thing was this discussion of DC heroes as gods, and the whole idea of Batman killing and putting Batman in that position. This caused a huge kerfuffle on social media, right? And a lot of people talking about it. I just was about it. So I think there's probably people interested in my take on it as well. Because I'm a person that loves Zack, but also loves that Batman doesn't kill. And I've said this before because this is actually one of the things I disagree with Zack. And I actually don't love postmodernism. It's kind of weird because, like, in some ways I do like postmodernism because, like, Watchmen is, like, complete deconstruction. Like, Watchmen is that. It's also just the craftsmanship from the cartooning and the writing is phenomenal, but it is deconstruction. Frank Miller deconstructs Batman a lot. You know what I mean? So there is great deconstructive elements within a lot of the best people that have ever tackled stories in the comic book genre, you know, in the West. Also something you really don't see in manga in the East, right? But I had this thought as I was watching it, right? Because Zack was basically talking about how people say Batman doesn't kill, right? And he sort of broke it down a little bit more and was saying, like, well, as soon as you say that, I feel like, you know, putting him in a scenario or a situation in which he does. And I think a lot of people are kind of getting this conversation wrong. You know what I mean? And as somebody who really doesn't want Batman to kill, I will say that, like, my impression of what Zack was saying at that moment in the podcast was he's not saying that he wants to turn Batman into the Punisher. And I think if you look out on social media, a lot of people are miscategorizing or sort of just making it that's what he was saying. They're like, oh, look, this dude doesn't get it. We dodged a bullet, and all these different posts that were like kind of saying like Zack doesn't get Batman because of this. But if you really look at what he was saying, he's not saying like you turn Batman into Punisher. He's saying, given that context of Batman wanting to preserve life, it is interesting to put the character in a lose-lose situation where he essentially has to take life, right? But that is different than him becoming Punisher and just going out and taking all of these people out, okay? Like, one of the classic questions about Batman is, why doesn't he kill the Joker? And this is something that Alan Moore actually plays on in The Killing Joke itself, where Joker says, Batman says, all the people I've murdered, but I didn't kill you, and I should have, or something like that, right? And Joker's kind of like playing, teasing him about that. And it's kind of true. But even in that book, you acknowledge that Batman has killed people before. But given the choice and given the opportunity, he will not. He keeps taking Joker back to Arkham. And Joker keeps getting out and keeps killing people and hurting people. And Frank Castle would not abide that shit, right? So Frank would just kill and just, boom, done forever, and start like taking these criminals out and killing them. But Batman wants to preserve life. You know what I mean? He believes in the possibility of redemption, of reform. And so you have that characteristic put into Batman. But if you really listen to like what Zack is saying, again, he is not saying like, let's turn Batman into the Punisher, which they have kind of done before. Like there was I believe it was a one shot where you see an alternate future where Damian Wayne becomes Batman, and he has all these like bombs built across the city, and he's just like taking motherfuckers out. He's just like slaughtering people. But that's never been Bruce's thing, right? What Zack was talking about was taking that idea and putting it to the test, putting Batman in such a situation and seeing how he would deal with it or how he would handle it. And that's totally different. I mean, even in Final Crisis, Batman takes a gun out and he points it at Darkseid, and he's like, I don't use guns. And I don't remember if he says, like, I don't kill or whatever, but he's like, for you, I'll make an exception. And he shoots Darkseid, man. Fucking, kills him. So comic book people have played around with this as well. And so as somebody that doesn't like Batman killing, and there are parts of Zack's Batman where like he's just gunning people down. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know that Bruce is actually put into all of these different scenarios like Zack is describing in the podcast, because there's like literal parts where he's like flying out of a building, crashing into another thing. Like, people have done videos breaking down the body count and the kill count of like Batman during Snyder's films and stuff like that. He's a lot like Chopper, actually, from Rebels. He's just taking dudes out, right? But yeah, generally speaking, like, I get what he's saying, and the more you hear him actually talk about it, the more you realize, like, oh, he's taking it seriously, though. He lives and breathes this stuff. He might have a different perspective, and he does like to deconstruct and take a look at it. But one of the sort of, I guess, lingering problems with his reign of making DC movies is what he was trying to do was deconstruct these characters, but end up putting them back the way that we think of them. He was going to take Clark to the Boy Scout. He was going to take Batman back to being Batman. Like, that was his goal, but we don't see that happen because the 5-movie plan or whatever gets cut short and we don't, get it actually explained. So, yeah, I don't know, man. I thought the podcast was awesome. I liked Zack's answer a lot. And then, of course, because there's the Zack Snyder cult and the James Gunn cult and those motherfuckers like going at it. It's just a bunch of buttholes on Twitter trying to either, slander Zack, or if you're like a gun person, or make it seem like he doesn't get DC at all, or that he's the only one that does. The truth is actually somewhere in the middle. But yeah, no, I loved it. I thought it was dope. And I think, I hope that Zack actually gets the chance to play with those characters again and to do Dark Knight Returns. And yeah, so that's kind of my thoughts on Zack and the whole Batman killing thing. Kind of an interesting topic for sure. Wonder what you guys think of it. Rossi says, this is the Daredevil Season 2 rooftop scene. Batman is a half measure. Punisher put them down and they stay down. Yeah, 100%. That's the whole thing. And that's why it's interesting to have a character like Frank around. Elijah says, been a while. Just wanted to say, what's up to the motherfucking Avengers? News be slow these days. Dune is life. Woman taking all of my time. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that, man. Nothing wrong for that. Let's not hope for that. LOL. He got to move on at some point. I don't want him to move on. I mean, I like feel the opposite. Like, I feel like in a world where you're going to let Matt Reeves do Batman 2, in a world where you're doing Joker 2, in a world where you have all these Elseworlds, I mean, hell yeah, I want to see more Zack Snyder DC stuff. But I'm still going to give Gunn and Gunn stuff a fair shot. You know what I mean? Like, I would love for the Gunn Superman movie to be fantastic and to like do something new and fresh. And maybe it's just fresh because it kind of is a return to like, Silver Age Superman identity and ideals and like less deconstruction. So, yeah. You currently have double the amount of viewers on Twitter. Yeah, no, for sure. And that's cool. What up, Twitter? I think that's dope. It's one of those things where YouTube's so weird with like its algorithm. And I think what's going on with Twitter right now is they're just pushing really hard on streaming. They want streaming to work on Twitter. So they've been pushing it pretty hard. And I appreciate everybody that's watching over there. Even if you're not real, I still appreciate it. Bro, come on. He replaced the Dark Knight Returns lore with his own headcanon. It doesn't want to change the character for the good of the story. He's doing it to basically troll. No, I disagree. How about that? Have you ever disagreed? When are the potential 150 Unity slots becoming available? Oh, man, I don't know if they will. So I'll tell you guys this. I had a little town hall with the collectors. I'm going to put the vote up. We're going to probably vote from today till next week sometime. But I got to tell you, I get the sense from a lot of collectors that they are like, hell nah, bro. We do not want to bring anybody else into this collector community. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm going to make my case. I'm going to do a little video, start the poll, and we'll see. But I mean, look, some of the attitude from the collectors is basically like they feel like, you know what it is too? This is what I think it is. You know when you discover a band and it's like they're not very popular, but you discovered the band and you're like, dude, like this is my shit and like I'm so cool because like I discovered this band. And then all of a sudden that band starts to go mainstream and starts to blow up, and you call all the new people coming in like fair weather fans, and you're like, oh well, I knew about that band before anybody knew about that band. You know what I mean? That's a little bit of the energy I'm picking up from the collectors, where they're like, oh well, we believed in Unity before there was a chapter 1. You know what I mean? And I mean, they're not wrong. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not that I can't really argue with that. That's true. So, yeah. They're literally like, yeah, that's kind of what it is. They, and so we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm going to put it up to a vote. I said, because enough people have asked, I said I will do another vote on it. But at the end of the day, it's up to them. They're going to vote, and we'll see how it goes. I'll let you guys know next week. Chillin says, just watched the Keaton Batman the other day, and he was racking up a bit of a body count in the movie. Snyder is not the first one to want Batman to kill. Oh, yeah, 100%. Yep. Happy International Women's Day, says Rossi. Yeah, no, for sure. I tell you, maybe we would have celebrated a little bit more of International Women's Day if one of my male heroes didn't die. And I was just like, holy shit. But then again, shout out to Toriyama's wife, something that I think a lot of people might discount, and even some more modern progressive people would say doesn't matter as much. I think it absolutely matters. I think the family dynamic and men and women supporting each other, I think that's like an important part of it. So shout out to Toriyama's wife. Toriyama's daughter too. Hell yeah. Sure glad I got in when I was supposed to, says Trin. Yeah. Look, I get it. I get it, guys. I don't really have harsh feelings either way. You know what I mean? But I'm hoping to add some cool stuff to the Kickstarter either way, so that there's fun stuff for everybody to be able to pick up and enjoy and celebrate and support Unity. At the end of the day, we want to support Unity, we want to raise as much money as possible. By the way, I probably should have said this more clearly, right? But the only way for you to get Unity this August is via the Kickstarter. Like, I probably should have said this more clearly, because I think some people are like, oh, well, I'll just get it when it comes out. Well, when it comes out in August, that's just for Kickstarter people. It won't come out for like other people to buy until either late this year or even next year. Like, it won't hit comic shops until either late this year or next year. Right? So that's like something I probably should have been more clear about. If you want to be one of the first people to hold Unity in your hands and read it, you better back this fucking Kickstarter, because otherwise you're gonna have to wait. Which isn't necessarily the bad thing, but that is what it is. So Dr. Wargod says, everything reminds me of how lonely I am. The sensitive man in the dating game. Dude, it is tough for sure. Like, I can't tell if you're trolling or not, but let's just say you're not. Let's say you're being authentic. I totally understand it, and I get it. And I think that one of the things that's tough about a relationship or even courting someone is you do have to be a little vulnerable. Like, you have to share a part of yourself. There's a vulnerability that comes with that. And I think I think honestly over the past 10, 15, maybe 30 years, men, especially in the West, have been getting some pretty bad programming and are left at a pretty weird emotional place. So there are ways to kind of find your way out of that wilderness, but I think you begin by admitting those feelings and admitting where you're at. You know what I mean? Admit where you're at. And being sensitive doesn't necessarily mean you're weak either. I mean, I'm a pretty fucking sensitive guy. You know what I mean? Like, I was crying about Akira Toriyama last night and this morning. You know what I mean? So, there's a way forward, man. There's a way forward. You can do it. Baldy1 Kenobi says, did my Unite pledge earlier today? I'm hyped for the book and the success that comes with it. Let me check it out. Got 152 backers. A bunch of people got in on the $1 before we closed it. That's cool. What's your name on there? What's your name on there? Oh yeah, a bunch of people got in. That's great. I'll send out all those things really soon. As a gamer who has a full-time job and a girlfriend, not gonna lie, it's hard to find time for myself sometimes. Thank God for the Stream Deck, honestly, though. Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. Okay, guys. I've got to get out of here. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. One of those days, man, where all I wanted to do was get on stream and gush about Akira Toriyama, talk about how much dude meant to me, and share why, with some of you that maybe aren't familiar, he made such a massive impact on so many people. So, honestly, incredible to have the community to be able to share that with, even though it's, you know, not one of our most popular YouTube streams. I didn't care. I just wanted to get in here and talk about Akira. So thank you for allowing me to do that. Thank you for those of you that showed up. I hope you got something out of it, and I really appreciate all you motherfuckers. I really do. So gonna get on out of here, okay? Much love to you all. As I always say, I hope you're having an awesome and a nerdy day. And I'll see you in the next video. All right, I'll come in here for a second. I want to address this with Sons of Ares. Got a gifted membership today. Thanks. Hell yeah. Just pledged for their 3. How do I get a t-shirt and a hoodie too? Well, one of the things I have to do is add the t-shirts as items. Right now they are pledge tiers, but I have to add them as items as well. So by next week, I'll figure that out, and you can add stuff to your pledge at that point. And also, Rossi, appreciate you. Thanks for that. I think 150. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Is everybody gone? Did everybody leave? Leave. Don't have much to say. Just want to say thanks. And we'll be back at it real strong next week. Hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. We're working on some really cool videos that I hope you check out. Check out the Clips channel, and I'll see you guys real soon, okay? Remember, open up your third eye and wash out your stinky butt.